Finally, we got the parts in to rebuild this 2022 Massimo TBoss 750 UTV. So if you guys remember last video on this machine, we picked up this unit for $3,000 from the dealership. The dealership stated they got this thing from auction. It was having some really bad knocking noises when going into gear. They thought it was a clutch. They took apart the clutch and found it was not the clutch. So they posted this thing up for sale for $35. I offered $3. They said, come grab it. So we picked this thing up. Got back home, test drove this thing. Wasn't smoking at all, ran perfect in neutral, but as soon as you put this thing into gear, it was having issues. So we looked at the differential. Differential fluid looked fine, and we actually unhooked the differential from the engine, and it was still making that noise. So we figured there must be something internally wrong with the transmission and the engine. So last video, we actually took the engine out and disassembled the whole thing. And if you look over here, we got the case split. That was a bit of a job. It took a whole video to do. But the only problem we found with this whole engine and the transmission was the drive shaft gear here was just completely rounded off, so it wasn't grabbing at all. And then here, this gear that one meshes to was pretty ground down as well. If you look at the washer, that was flattened out pretty good too. So what we're thinking happened was the previous owner must have pulled something really big with this thing, and you can see the whole hitch is ripped right out of it. I think they pulled it and then stripped those gears out, is what I think happened. And then the nut that was holding on this gear right here, that sits on a shaft, was just stripped out and laying at the bottom of the case. So this gear was just dangling there, and we're really lucky we didn't put a hole in the case driving this thing with the gear like that. They were just flopping around down here, and I could have easily jammed up the case and made a hole. So we're really lucky that didn't happen. All the bearings were fine, the crank was fine, everything else was fine. So we ended up ordering some new parts for this. I could not find these parts anywhere because this machine was so new. I actually had to go to the Massimo website and buy these things direct from them, and they are extremely expensive. So this piece right here was close to $300. This gear and this washer was like $170. And then the gaskets for the top end that we needed were another $100. So I think the bill came to like $490 something for those parts alone. And then they didn't sell the nut, so we had to go out and find a nut. This is a 20 millimeter by 1.5 thread. And as you can see, it's not the exact same nut. I could not find the exact same nut anywhere. We got a couple different options here. Here's a lock nut and the washer that goes on there as well. So we'll try those out, but we got some thread locker for it. Some red Loctite we're gonna put on there as well, so that never comes back off. So we're gonna be replacing all these parts today, and hopefully this thing will be fixed. So today's goal in this video is to get the whole engine back together into the machine and be able to take this thing for the first ride. So obviously we have a ton of work to do. So let's get going and start rebuilding this thing. All right, first thing we're gonna do is clean out all the cases. You can see some metal flakes in here from that gear grinding. So let's get that all cleaned out, blown out with the air compressor and cleaned up. And then we're gonna lube up all the bearings again and get the case halves cleaned. Just going through, getting all the metal chunks out of here. Getting this thing all cleaned up. See all those flakes coming out. A lot of metal chunks from that gear being stripped out. All right, let's let's oil up all these bearings. Alright, first thing to go in is going to be the transmission. So we've got the transmission here. All those are locked down with C-clips. You can see C-clip there, C-clip there. And this is the order in case anyone's watching and is putting it back together. So you've got gear here, gear here. That one, and then the big gear on top. Got the washer under the C-clip, and then you've got the C-clip there. Then you've got the drum. No wear on the drum at all. The drum is going to go through the case on this side. And then you've got this guy. This locks the drum and the forks. You've got this gear with the collar. No washer in there. And you've got a couple gears on this shaft. Nothing can come off that shaft, so you can't mess that up. And then you've got this gear right here that goes on after. And you can see there's a cutout part that goes down onto the transmission. Just like that. No washer. So let's assemble this. The first thing we're going to put down is this big gear. The shaft drops in just like that. And then you've got your other shaft here. So you can see this gets thinner. So the big part goes down. And then you've got your gear. This gear can go on either way. It goes down like that. And you've got your collar, goes over that like that. Alright, that's the first step. Now on to the hard step here. So we're going to get our forks. You can see the forks compress here with the springs. And you've got the C-clip holding that on there. C-clip holding that on there. So these go on to the transmission here. The smaller gear goes down. I'm going to put these into the grooves. Just like that. It'll lock in place, kind of. And then you're gonna get your drum, and you're gonna put this on here like that. So you can move between, and that's gonna go down like this. So the long shaft goes down. These forks are pointing out like that. And the trick I found, I put this transmission together a couple times. You want to put this whole unit in at once, so we are going to do that. So we're going to compress these into here, put our forks in, the grooves on the drum. You can see those are in the grooves of the drum. That shaft is sticking down through there. And the forks are in the grooves on the transmission. So now we have to get this down in here. That's the tricky part. Make sure it all stays together is the hard part here. Alright. Move that around a little bit. Go. She's in. Now it should spin really smooth. That pin's locked in. So this is what that should look like in there. And if you spin this shaft, everything spins smoothly. Not binding at all. nice and free. So that's how you do the transmission. And then your final gear goes on right there. Like that. All right, now the middle drive shaft's going on. So this piece is gonna go on. We're gonna put gasket maker here. It's gonna go into the case. And then this piece is gonna go on like that. And then get bolted in with a washer and a bolt from the back side. And I'll show you guys where that goes. Let's put through like this. So temporarily just gonna leave that like that. And then we are going to put that on like that. And we've got access to get that bolt in. Now we're gonna use red Loctite on this one. Really douse that with some red Loctite. We don't want that ever coming back off. I'm gonna try to hold this up while I do it. Using the fuel resistant gasket maker for this. Go all around here with it. You don't want this leaking. Gonna use a rubber mallet, hit that down a little bit just to push that in place. Spins nice and smooth. Alright, that looks good. Alright, the post that holds this plate on was loose in here, so we're getting that out and putting some Loctite on it. The other ones were pretty tight, but that could have been part of the problem as to why this thing blew up the way it did. Alright, we got that out. We're gonna clean that up a bit, put some Loctite on it. Drive that sucker back in. these are tight. All right, here are the parts we're gonna need. We've got the 4 nuts here. We've got the washer, the other nut, and then we've got the shaft. So what happens is this goes through here like this. It's a little tricky to get in there. That rides on there like that. And this goes on just like that. And there's a washer that goes on like that. And then a nut. So we're going to Loctite that nut. Don't want that failing again. And we'll torque that down. Alright. Got that gear on there. Loctite it on. Alright, let's drop this into place. Get this thing bolted down. That's pretty nice. Now we're going to use medium strength Loctite for the nuts. Just the blue Loctite going on. All right, everything is installed. Pretty smooth. Hardly any slop in there. That's it. So, everything looks really good. All right, so this has 2 counterbalances. And you can see this one is a little bit longer than this one. So the shorter one goes in here. And you want to install it up like that so then you can get the crank in. This one goes down here. You can let that one sit like that. Now we're going to put some gasket maker on this. Moto Seal fuel resistant gasket maker. So this goes on the whole case here. And we cleaned out the cases with brake cleaner and a rag. This thing's heavy. This thing's really heavy. crank spins, transmission spins. Alright, case halves are finally together. Alright, oil pump going on here. You can see it spins nicely in there. Alright, that goes on. Just like that. Got your bolts going in. Pin goes through here, just like that. Goes over the top. You got your washer, and then you've got your little C-clip. All right, then we've got the oil line. O-rings still look pretty good there. And then we're gonna put these on and get those tightened down. All right, now we're gonna line up the crank with the 2 dots here, stamped on the crank, with the gear with the 2 dots right here. So that needs to go on there. We've got the little woodruff key here. Let's see which way that one goes on. Alright, and then we'll slide this in place. Line up the 2 dots here. Just like that. And our bolt goes on. We can torque that down. All right, now we've got the gear with the 1 dot going on the crank gear with the 1 dot. So here's our woodruff key here. Slide that in. Line up the dots. And you've got another gear here. That part's down. And you've got your oil chain here that runs the oil pump. So that's going to go around here. I'm going to press this gear on. Right there. There we go. Perfect. Alright, then we've got our bolt that goes on here. All right, make sure everything moves. You can spin the crank. Nothing's binding up. When I first disassembled this, I was pleasantly surprised to see metal gears in here. Usually these are all plastic. All right, side cover going on. All right, over on the other side, I had to take this to the press and press on the star, the shift star, and then we just installed the little spring tensioner right there. Only took me like 5 minutes to do. So that's all pressed on with the C-clip on there as well. A little close up in case you guys are working on the same machine. But that's what that looks like. I haven't tested to see if it shifts yet. Probably should do that pretty soon. It's really hard to shift without it on the machine, so we're gonna test once we get it in the machine. That's the first thing we'll test. Chain guide going on. This goes up here like that. And you've got your bolt. We're gonna put a little bit of Loctite on there. A little blue Loctite. Get that going. All right, now our cam chain can go in. Goes in right through the top end. It sits like that. We have the starter gear going in. Next. Then we've got the Woodruff key. It goes in right here. All right, and then the flywheel can go on. Make sure that Woodruff key's lined up properly. There we go. All right, and then your washer, your nut. All right, time to get the top end installed. Let's get our gasket on. And just like this, we're gonna put a little bit of the gasket maker on there. Here. Clean the surface off. Cam chain through. We lube this all up. In is going towards the intake side. We'll get our circlip in. All right, so cylinder looks perfect. It was running great before we tore it down. So we're just gonna do a really light hone on it. That'll just take some of that glazing off. All right, that looks pretty good. We're gonna get that cleaned up and installed. we got the head gasket going on. Get this one in first. Just like that. Cam chain going through. Make sure we're not pinching the gasket. So these have double washers on them for some reason. Interesting. All right, torque spec for the head. I could not find them anywhere online. We were going to torque them to 33 foot-pounds. I torqued them to 30. It feels pretty tight. We'll go an extra 3 just to make sure. All right, in order to do the timing, we need this side cover on. Here we go. All right, take off our cap here. And we're gonna be looking for that timing mark for top dead center. Unfortunately, there's no way to turn the engine over on this side, which is kind of weird. So I think we can do it from the crank side here, hopefully. Alright, hopefully you guys can see the line there. Right there. Lined up with the arrow right there. To confirm, piston is right at the top of the cylinder there. Hopefully you guys can see that. Get this wire out. So, exhaust is marked there. These lines are going to be parallel with the surface of the head. I think we're like 1 tooth off here. Alright, that looks pretty good. We're just slightly off there, but the line is slightly forward, so I think that will even out. We'll lock it down there and turn this thing over again and see. Alright, we're good there. Now we can get the valve cover on. And I think that's the last piece of the puzzle, besides the clutch. Alright, water pump going on first. Just gonna put a little gasket maker on here. This goes down like that. There's a little slit in the screw of the water pump. Has to line up with that. All right, you can hear the valves. We're not even gonna touch the valves. This thing was running perfect, so I'm gonna leave them like that. All right, cam chain tensioner going in. Scared me. Doesn't like to stay. I'm gonna have to hold it there. All right, top end is back together, looking good. Let's go to the clutch side and work on that. All right, let's get the primary clutch on here. Just goes down just like that. All right, primary clutch on. Secondary going on now. We've got the washer behind there. Right there. Gotta get the belt on. Might get the belt on after. Engine is now complete. All right, now we somehow have to get that big engine into here. And last time we took this engine out, we actually had the top end disassembled and it barely fit through. So I'm hoping it'll fit. We might have to take off a couple more things, we'll see. Does this whole plastic piece come off? That would work maybe. If this piece comes off, we could probably fit it in through here, I'm guessing. Through the back might be a little tight. That's where we took it out last time, so we'll see. All right, so if we cut off that part right there, that was able to fit through here. I don't know if that's gonna fit now that we have the top end on there. That's gonna be interesting. So this engine actually goes backwards, so the top end's gonna be facing this way, towards the rear. So we have to kind of maneuver that into there. Be like this. So we're gonna see if we can do it. I don't know. All right, we're past the point of no return here. So either it's gonna fit or not. It looks like it might. So we were able to get that through the back way. Just slowly lowering that thing down. Hopefully nothing broke on the engine. I think we survived. Man, that is tight. So now we've got to get the drive shaft hooked up here. This has a brake system here and a disc we need to put on there. And then the drive in the back has to be hooked up as well. All right, she's back in. Engine's lined up with the mounts. All right, now we can start adding everything back on here, starting with the drive shaft. So hopefully everything lines up and everything's good to go. We're really hoping that the differential's still good. That'd suck if it wasn't. All right, everything is hooked back up. All the mounts are back on, hose is back on, oil line's back on. You can see everything is hooked back up. That probably took me a couple hours, hour and a half. Took everything back up. Everything's looking good. We have to move some of the wires out of the way and zip tie those down, but we want to see if this thing runs first. Without further ado, let's get some oil and cooling in this thing and attempt to fire it up. I'm really hoping our problem is fixed. If not, it's probably the differential causing issues. But yeah, everything's good. The shifting is working on it as well. I'll show you guys quick. So you start this thing up. And push the brake in. Reverse is working. High, neutral. So shifting is working perfectly. So at least we put the transmission together, right? We'll see if this thing fires up. This one should be interesting. All right, let's get this oil in. I'm going to take 2 quarts of oil. Get the funnel in there. All right, we're using 10W40 wet clutch oil. Get that dumped in. All right, then we'll check that after we run it for the first time. Time to get the coolant in. All right, then we can bleed the system. Right in the water pump housing, there's a bolt down here. You can hear all the air coming out of it. There, it's dripping. Seal that back up. All right, here we go. Turn the key on. We'll first see if it turns over here. Sounds like the fuel pump's running. Are we low on gas? Yeah, we're empty on gas. All right, let's try this again. All right, let's see if she turns over here. Turns over, battery's dead. All right, here we go. We'll put the jumper on it. Fired up. Awesome. Sounds pretty good. We're in neutral right now. Sounds really good. We have a temp gauge on here. I don't think we have a temp gauge, unfortunately. We'll see if that coolant's circulating. Nice strong exhaust. Sounds great. No leaking yet. No smoking. It's a good sign. We're going to check the oil here. Let this thing run for a couple minutes. And we'll see. Everything's working so far. All right, now, will it move? That is the question. We're going to check the oil, check the coolant, and then take this thing for a little test drive. All right, so online it said 2 quarts of oil to the engine, which I thought was kind of low. And this thing took another quart about. So now we're up to 3 quarts, and it looks like we're good on the stick. But let's run it and make sure again. Let this thing run for a bit. Then we'll check that oil again. Make sure we're good before we take it for the first ride. So far, so good. No knocking at all. Yeah, engine sounds really healthy. All right, here we go. We're gonna back it up. Alright, so far so good. No knocking, no grinding. I think we fixed it. Alright, we got this thing all back together, dump bed back on, seat back on. Everything is back together here. And the battery's still dead, so we took the hood off there for now. But it is complete. We're gonna go take it for a nice long ride and see how it does. We're hoping it doesn't overheat and that everything goes smoothly. Alright, hopefully this one's done. Alright, so this thing does have a temp gauge right there. And it's staying at 1 or 2 the whole time, so I think we are good to go. I think the system's plugged properly. So everything is working great. No issues with anything yet. The rear backup camera is kind of blurry now. I don't know what's going on with that. I'll show you guys here quick. Here's the rear backup camera. See, it's kind of blurry. Not sure what's going on with that. running great. Not overheating at all. The fan was coming on. When it hits 3 bars, it comes on. So that's good. So everything's working. It's doing great. No smoking. So far, it's holding up. Alright, this one cleaned up pretty nice. Pressure washed. Everything is spotless on it now. Zero rust whatsoever on this machine. So, yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. Well, the 2022 TBoss 750 is officially done. This thing took a ton of work to get back to riding condition, but it was definitely worth it. This thing's really nice, and I should enjoy it all winter long. So hopefully you guys enjoyed picking this thing up for $3,000, tearing it all down, diagnosing it, and taking it for the first ride. Always, always fun doing the UTV is you never know what you're gonna get. And luckily this one ran and drove after we got the engine back in. I was a little nervous about the differential back here being good or not, but seems to be pretty good. And yeah, so the whole problem was the gear here and here. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But I don't think we'll be pulling anything too heavy with it now that we don't have a hitch. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Stay tuned for next video. And until next time, we are out.